Ogou mwen blese, ferayo mwen blese, se blese mblese, mwen pa wè san mwen.
Assassin's Creed Freedom Cry is definitely not a game you hear many people talk about these days. It was originally released as a DLC for Black Flag, and then eventually released as its own standalone game as well. But believe it or not, I've never played Freedom Cry. Of course I had known about it, but nothing I heard ever really had me super interested in trying it out, but I finally decided to out of curiosity and to make a video about it. But just in case you're unaware of what Freedom Cry is actually about, the game follows Adewale, Edward's good friend and quartermaster from AC Black Flag. If you've played Black Flag, you'd know that he leaves Edward's crew to join up with the Assassins, and this takes place over a span of 2 years from 1735 to 1737. So we're talking about 13 to 15 years after the ending of Black Flag. But if you're curious on whether or not you should try Freedom Cry for yourself, or if you've played it already and are curious about my thoughts on the game, then you are in the right place, my friend, as in this video I'm going to give you my honest thoughts on the game, how it holds up in 2022, and whether or not I recommend it.
Freedom of men like you. I know this man.
You know nothing.
Like I mentioned, Freedom Cry takes place around 15 years after Black Flag in Haiti when Adewale is washed ashore in Port-au-Prince, a small city ran by the tyrant Governor de Fayette, who uses and mistreats slaves. Adewale quickly becomes invested in the city's problems and temporarily puts his missions for the Creed on hold to fight back against the governor and free the slaves. I always quite liked Adewale in Black Flag as a character, but we of course didn't know much about him, and for the most part, I think he makes a good protagonist in Freedom Cry. I wish there was a little more. His backstory was vaguely mentioned, but never really went into too much depth. And while he does have somewhat of a character arc during this game, the story itself is just so short that it never really has the time to make Ade a fully fleshed out character. Regardless though, I enjoyed playing as him, and I definitely understand him more as a character than I did in Black Flag, as he was mostly just Edward's sidekick. Not to mention he has some really cool assassin robes. I also think he's quite different from most protagonists in the series. His motivations and goals are all about freeing the slaves and fighting back. There's no Templar assassin conflict in this, which I think is absolutely fine for a story like this. The game also tackles some pretty powerful themes with a heavy focus on the cruelty of slavery, and it definitely feels different from most Assassin's Creed games and Ubisoft games in general. However, the antagonist, Governor de Fayette, is a very two-dimensional bad guy who exists solely to serve as the big bad you must aim to bring down during the game. And on top of all that, I think the story is just way too short. It's only like 4 hours total, maybe 5 if you do all the extra stuff of course, and that's not nearly enough time to build up a compelling narrative. And I understand it's not meant to be a full main entry in the series, but even if we compare it to something similar like Liberation for Assassin's Creed 3, Freedom Cry is about half the length of even that. It's definitely not a bad story, and there were some really good themes in there, but it's far too short for it to properly develop the story and characters, especially the antagonist. As expected, the gameplay in Freedom Cry is pretty much exactly the same as Black Flag, with far less weapon choices. However, in Freedom Cry, you get some of the coolest weapons I've ever seen in the series. Adewale gets a machete and a blunderbuss, which is basically a super powerful shotgun. I really enjoyed using these weapons, even if I was a bit disappointed by the very limited weapon selection. The tools are the same for the most part as well, with the smoke bombs, sleep and berserk darts, and rope dart, with the exception of the firecrackers, which were a new addition in Freedom Cry that basically works as a lure. Again, no new major additions, but some nice small ones. Naval combat is the same as Black Flag as well, with your mortars, heavy cannons, rams, chain shots, round down shots, all that. And you can still upgrade your ship with materials you get from looting other ships, although you can't upgrade it quite as much as you could in Black Flag. You of course can also change your ship's appearance as well. I really enjoy Black Flag's naval system, so that wasn't a big deal to me. However, I was quite disappointed in the lack of customization in Freedom Cry. Compared to Black Flag, it is very limited. As for the mission structure, a big part of the game is about freeing slaves and recruiting Maroons. Recruiting Maroons is how you get all your upgrades, like the bigger pouches for your tools and ammo, and you usually need a certain amount recruited in order to start the next story mission. I'm not really a big fan of this system because rather than recruiting and building your own resistance, it feels more like completing a list of tasks to increase a number or meter. It would be cool if there was some sort of gameplay effect with the Maroons, like they could actually come and assist you, like something similar to the Assassin system from Brotherhood, Revelations, and AC3. I suppose locking upgrades behind the Maroon system gives you incentive to actually recruit as much as you can, but even so, I wish there was a little more to it rather than just using it as a way to get upgrades. The game does also have a pretty similar structure to Black Flag with the mission design, and by that I mean lots of tailing and eavesdropping missions. Now, I've said this before, I don't hate tailing missions to an extent because it's part of the fantasy of being an assassin, following somebody from the shadows, but I don't really like the way Black Flag and Freedom Cry does it. There's way too many for starters, and they aren't particularly engaging either. AC1 easily had the best tailing missions, and I don't really like how AC4 overly uses them, and that extends to Freedom Cry as well. All in all though, everything is very similar to Black Flag with a few small new changes and weapons. Again, I really like the machete shotgun combination, and if you enjoy Black Flag's gameplay, then you'll likely really enjoy this as well. The open world in Freedom Cry was easily the most disappointing part about the game for me. Black Flag's world was incredibly freeing. Being able to sail to numerous large cities or small islands and just explore is one of the best things about that game. But Freedom Cry's world is very small and restrictive. The main city, Port-au-Prince, is very small and doesn't hold a candle to a city like Havana from Black Flag. Now don't get me wrong, I really like the setting. Haiti in the West Indies is a unique location for the series. I just wish they would have done more with it. There's not a lot of extra islands or cities to explore, and most of them are very bare. And everything in the main story is either restricted to Port-au-Prince or the occasional naval battle in the sea. It doesn't have that sense of exploration and freedom Black Flag did, and I was really disappointed by that. There also isn't a whole lot to do in the world outside of the story. There are some of the same activities from Black Flag, like the harpooning and the plantations. However, instead of robbing the plantations like in Black Flag with Edward's greedy little hands, you're freeing the slaves and recruiting them to your cause. And a lot of the world activities are designed around liberating slaves, helping them escape, saving them from being punished, carrying the injured, breaking them out of a jail cell, killing the guards in a convoy, buying their freedom at an auction, or boarding a slave ship and freeing them. This made for a compelling world activity that also fit with Adewale's character and the story. My only real complaint is that because Port-au-Prince is so small, I noticed the liberating activities were respawning over and over again in the exact same places, which made it feel repetitive and a bit immersion breaking. As per usual, I played the game on PC in 1440p, and the graphics hold up quite well, just like Black Flag of course, and it does have that 60 FPS cap like all the old Assassin's Creed games as well. In terms of bugs, I didn't really experience too many, aside from the occasional buggy ragdoll physics, but that was about it. So, should you buy Assassin's Creed Freedom Cry in 2022? Well, if you really enjoy Black Flag, or maybe just the old Assassin's Creed formula in general, then I'd say yeah, it's worth checking out. It has fun gameplay, a pretty decent story, the world isn't the greatest, and it's a very short game, but it's also very cheap. At full price, it's only $15, and on sale, you can get this game really cheap. I believe I got it for $3 during the last Ubisoft sale, so for that amount, I definitely think think it's worth it. It does feel like a watered down version of Black Flag in some areas, particularly with the customization and open world, but it has its fair share of redeeming qualities as well. But if this review helped you out in your decision of whether or not to try the game, let me know down in the comments, or if you've already played it, let me know your thoughts on Freedom Cry down there as well. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you considered leaving a like and subscribing to the channel if you're new here. I make a lot of Assassin's Creed videos. But other than that, thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day, Assassins.